Hello there, my friends. This is Dark Lord Turgon coming at you today with a new video. And I'm following up really on the video that I posted the other day. And I'm going to put a link to that um, below. And I just want to follow up on that video because there's a couple of things that I wanted to just provide a little bit of additional clarity on. And I've been obviously giving this a tremendous amount of thought because I think that it's a really good idea. And so far, I've gotten some really positive feedback from people that have watched the other video, who are like-minded in this want to see what this game really can do, you know? So a couple of things I just wanted to provide clarifications on. One of the things I stated in the previous video is that the goal is to make a community of 3, 4, 500 players. That's not going to cut it for most of what we're trying to do, to be perfectly honest. So after I went back and listened to my own video, I realized that I'd like to kind of state what I think the real goal should be, which is 2,400. A 2,400 player community could do some really cool things if there's that many folks that feel the way that we feel about trying to play the game the way we want to play it. It's an ambitious goal for sure. And the reason why 2,400 is so that, let's say you wanted to play like a Rebuilding Glory or a Tactics Evolved campaign, and you just want to see what it's like to have two full active teams in every faction across the server. There's 12 factions, 6 good and 6 evil. So 2 times 12 is 24, and 100 players per team, so 2,400. So that's where we get that number from. The other thing I just wanted to provide a little bit of clarity on is just, if we're able to build this, if we're able to do this, I'm so excited just to even think that it's possible. But if we're able to do it, I think it's really important to be fully transparent about who is going to be leading, what the leadership structure is, and just everything. How we plan to achieve things, how we're going throughout the process, piece by piece, step by step. So what I'm envisioning is kind of like similar to King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Not necessarily in terms of like a king and 10 officers. Everyone that would be part of the quote unquote leadership group, maybe there's a better label we can put on that we can think of together. Because the overall goal of the community is to ensure that we're all doing what we want to be doing as a group. And there's going to be times, I suppose, when it's hard to get 2,400 people to align. So you need a little bit more of a smaller group to be able to make certain decisions a little bit more swiftly. So that's why you have like these small leadership groups. But we would all be equals within the group. And we obviously, I think anyone who's part of the leadership team should be a person who talks to their people, gets their feedback, understands what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they want to do. That's the kind of people that I want in these kind of roles, because that's what kind of a person I am. And I'd like to believe that am a decent leader of a team, because I balance, you know, the morale of the group with strategy and timing and execution. And it's not easy to do both at the same time. It's kind of like using your left side of your brain and your right side of your brain at the same time. One part of it is more emotional and feeling, and the other part is more analytical and calculated. So all of this is just kind of to put, to say out there that, that's what I'm thinking of. Like, each leader of a team that comes on board would obviously have a seat at this kind of council, but there would be no leader, there would be no king. I would just plan on making myself kind of the coordinator, a focal point, but we all work as a group to make decisions together based upon feedback from our people. So there's a structure from the lowest peon to the highest of the high, and really the space between the lowest peon and the highest of the high would be like a layer of dust in a perfect community. that we aspire towards. So how do we achieve that? So that's the next thing that I wanted to talk about in this video. I want to give you a little bit of a project outline, and it's basically, 4 or 5 steps. And the first 2 steps are obviously the heaviest lift. Step one, obtain sponsorship. How do we do that? Well, I'm making these videos and I'm sharing them with people. I'm sharing them with the leaders of teams that I've been on, leaders of teams that I've been against, people that I've stayed in touch with throughout my 7 seasons playing the game, as well as my friends on my friends, my former teams, all in all, not just the leaders, but like I'm trying to just get, you know, these videos out there, and I'm trying not to take too much of your time. I appreciate you taking 15 minutes of your day to listen to me sit here and discuss all this with you. So, um, try to keep this as succinct as possible. But at any rate, without sponsorship, no project can succeed. So if we can get 24 teams on board, we could build this thing, and it would be crazy if we could do it. And I think, once you get the ball rolling, once you get one team, you turn into two, and then two, maybe four, and then the idea keeps spreading. Maybe it resonates with people, maybe it doesn't. More people come on board. We find ourselves at double digits. Before we know it, we're going to hit that 24, and we're going to have to cap it and say, hey, we cannot accept additional people at this time until we know how it works, if it works. You know, that's what I'm envisioning. And the goal is to get, for me personally, just if I had to set a goal, would be to get this off the ground by the summertime. It is January 3rd. I'm sorry, it's January 2nd, 2023. I would not try to get this off the ground before June because there's a lot of pieces in play, all right? The first step, once you have sponsorship, once you've got those, I've found those 24 leaders who think this is going to be fun and buy into it. Once I have those folks, then we can create a community. One Discord server to rule them all. Just kidding. But no, seriously. To have everyone in the community share a common space outside the game, Discord is absolutely the best option. So I'll create a server once I have leaders, and it makes sense to do so, and then we'll build it out from there. The next step after we do those two things, those are heavy lifts. If I can get 24 people by Easter, by April, then creating the community will take probably another couple of weeks to get everything set up. Building a Discord server, um, depending on like how advanced you make it, it can take a day or two, or it could take a week or two. Who knows? And who knows what it ends up looking like, feeling like, and being like until you're in there and you're building it and you're doing it. The next step is to set a timeline. Once we have the question, of who's going to be there, then we need to figure out, when everyone's going to be available to jump in next. Because some of us may be sitting in bag end. I hate to say it, but you never know. It could be a week or two. You could be sitting here for a month waiting for this. And I know that sounds completely terrible, but I think if you consider it an investment, the investment is worth the wait, because once we get in this thing and we start doing this thing, it's going to take on a life of its own, something that I think we've all thought is possible for this game to do, but and yearn for it collectively. Um, but because of the way the game has been set up and just through the natural behavior of people, it just hasn't happened. So that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to make it happen. We obtain the sponsorship, we create a community, we set a timeline, then we determine what campaign and teams we're going to play. So at this point, we figured out who and when we're going to do this. So now we need to go through and put out some series of votes to say, okay, what are we doing? Are we doing Rebuilding Glory? Are we doing Tactics Evolved? Are we trying to jump into a King of Men? Rangers? What, War of the Ring? Like, what do we want to do? So we'll put some polls out there and leave them open for probably 3 to 5 days, and see, once you get more than, I would say, 70 to 80% of the community's buy-in, um, then we can put together, either a second vote of like the top 2 or 3, or we can just go with the number 1, and then we know what we're playing. And then once we know what we're playing, we need to know who's going to break into what teams. Are we just going to maintain the teams that we signed up for with this? That would be my best guess. I would assume that would be what we would do, just because I think it's reasonable. The first time that we do this, most of the teams are going to want to remain intact, just so they can harness those existing friendships and chemistry that you've formed, throughout the seasons you've played together. But we'll figure all that out, and then it's time we sign up. We're ready to lock and load. We do the season. Do we leverage the United Faction system, or do we consider having a true free-for-all? We could recreate the conditions of Season 1 and Season 2 in a Rebuilding Glory campaign. That's something we could do. Just saying. Whatever it is we decide to do and however it goes, at the end of the season, we go through a feedback phase. Tell us what you think. What did you like? What could have been done better? I want to hear from as many people across the community as I can. And then we figure out what we want to do the next time. And we kind of go through the process over again, except for it's not as heavy a lift. We've already experienced it together. We don't need to get sponsorship anymore. The sponsorship phase is part of the initial investment, not the ongoing project. So fill in the gaps if people decide they leave or if they quit playing the game. Life happens, and I would imagine there'll be people waiting to come on board, especially once we have these feedback sessions. And I'll make everything as transparent and public as I can, because I think it's a neat opportunity to do so. Just some brainstorming items here before I wrap up. If we're able to do this, what are some things we can do in future seasons with this healthy community? Well, we can do stuff like mix up teams. Maybe like half of one team really liked what they saw from another team, and the other team wasn't happy with what half their team did during that first season. So you could see some groups chinking off and splitting up and then getting absorbed into other groups. That's one thing that could happen just kind of organically on its own. Or we can straight up force change in a mix up. Like, I can put everyone's name on a spreadsheet, throw them into a mixer, and just mix everyone up that way. And then we can see, we can have the groups created completely artificially with no bias and no logic to determine who's going to be where whatsoever, and just see what happens. That could be fun. The other thing that we could do is swap sides. There are going to be people who have played non-RP and have developed both good and evil rosters. But by and large, I think a lot of people tend to focus on one side or the other. So if you're a predominantly good side player, we could make it play evil in the next season. And all the teams that have predominantly played evil, we could make them play good. We could swap it like that. That kind of, in a way, resets things, because people will be using commanders that they haven't used before, commanders they haven't developed rep wise, and it's kind of like another method that we could use to level the playing field, which could be really fun. Just a couple ideas. Do you have any other ideas for things that we could do? I'd love to hear them. Feel free to leave me a comment below regarding anything that I've discussed as part of this video. I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate your time, taking the time to watch this and listen. And I just appreciate everyone immensely. And I'm super excited to see if we can do this, because if we can, I think it pales in comparison to the achievement of solving world hunger for sure. But I think doing something like this in and of itself would be quite a feat, and I'm excited about it. So leave me a like, leave me a comment, shoot me a message on Discord. You know where to find me. Thanks again so much. Take care of yourselves. Stay well. Cheers.